It was a Tuesday evening in early June. I was sitting at my kitchen table after dinner, scrolling through real estate listings on my phone. Our neighbor, 3 houses down, had just sold for a good price, and I was curious about what homes in the neighborhood were going for these days. Not that I was planning to sell. This was my home. Had been for 32 years. That's when I saw it. 1420 Maple Street. My address. I blinked, scrolled back up. No, I'd read it right. My house. Listed for $850,000. The photos were unmistakable. My living room. The blue couch Robert and I had bought in 2010, worn spots on the armrests where we'd both sat reading for years. The bookshelf stuffed with teaching materials I'd never quite cleared out after retiring. The window overlooking the back garden. Robert's tomato plants visible in the background, overgrown now but still producing. I clicked through the photos. My kitchen. The chip tile backsplash we'd installed ourselves in 1992. The dining room with the table we'd refinished together. Michael and Sarah's height marks still visible on the doorframe, though they hadn't lived here in decades. Each photo felt like a violation, like someone had walked through my home taking inventory of my life. I scrolled back to the listing description. Estate sale, motivated seller, well-maintained family home in desirable neighborhood, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, original hardwood floors throughout, mature landscaping, move-in ready, closing in 45 days. Estate sale, like someone had died. Robert had died. 5 years ago in 2019, but I was still very much alive and very much living in this house. Every single day. My hands started shaking. I set the phone down on the table, picked it up again, read the listing one more time to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding something. But no, that was my address. Those were my rooms, my life on display like it was up for auction. The listing agent was someone I'd never heard of, Bradley Morrison, Morrison Realty. But there was a contact number for the seller. I recognized that number immediately. I'd called it 1,000 times over 47 years. It was Michael's number, my son's number. My son was trying to sell my house. I sat there staring at my phone. The kitchen felt different suddenly. Smaller. Like the walls were closing in. This was the same kitchen where I'd made breakfast every morning for 32 years. The same table where Michael and Sarah had done their homework. The same window where I'd stood watching Robert work in the garden, back when he was healthy enough to work in the garden. And Michael was selling it, without asking me, without telling me, like I didn't exist, like I was already dead. I called the number on the listing. It rang 4 times. Then voicemail. Michael's voice, professional and distant. "You've reached Michael Harris. Please leave a message and I'll get back to you as soon as possible." I hung up. Without leaving a message, my heart was racing. I couldn't catch my breath. This couldn't be happening. There had to be some explanation, some mistake. But I knew my son's phone number, and I knew my own house. There was no mistake. Michael was trying to sell my house out from under me. Let me back up. I need to explain how I got here. How my son, my own son, could think he had the right to sell my house without telling me. I bought this house in July 1985. Robert and I had been married 3 years. We were both teachers, me at Lincoln Elementary, him at the high school teaching history. The house cost $127,000. We thought that was a fortune. Took out a 15-year mortgage and paid it off in 12. Every extra dollar went toward that house. It was ours, free and clear by 1997. We raised 2 kids here. Michael was born in 1977, Sarah in 1979. This house saw everything. First steps in the living room, crayon marks on the walls we never quite got out, prom photos on the staircase. Robert died here too in 2019. Heart attack, massive. He was 71. We'd had 47 years together. I've lived alone since then, 5 years now, and I've been fine, better than fine. I have my routines, my garden, my book club, my neighbor Margaret checking on me more than I need, but I appreciate it anyway. At 74, I'm perfectly capable of managing my own home, my own life, my own decisions. Or at least I thought I was. Michael is 47 now, divorced 2 years ago. That divorce destroyed him financially. Lost the house in the settlement. The house I'd helped him buy, actually, back in 2002. Gave him $65,000 for the down payment, my entire retirement rollover when I left teaching. I thought I was helping him build his future. Jennifer got primary custody of the kids. Emma's 14 now, Jake's 12. Michael pays $2,800 a month in child support, on a sales manager's salary that fluctuates wildly depending on whether he's closing deals or not. I'd seen the strain on his face when he visited over the past year, the way he'd check his phone constantly, the dark circles under his eyes. He'd aged 10 years in 2. But I'd helped him. I always helped him. Over the years, I'd given Michael everything I could. $45,000 for college. I worked double shifts at the school, tutoring jobs in the summer, every extra dollar I could scrape together. $65,000 for that first house, $15,000 for his wedding to Jennifer in 2008, $12,000 when the divorce got ugly last year, legal fees, first month's rent for his new apartment, money to help him get back on his feet. Total, over 30 years, I'd given him about $137,000. I thought I was building his future. Turns out I was just building his sense of entitlement. Every morning at 6:30, I sit at this kitchen table with my coffee. Same chair facing the garden, same chipped mug Robert gave me 20 years ago. The handle cracked, but I've never replaced it. He used to sit across from me, reading the newspaper. Now I sit alone, but the routine stays. It's mine, my house, my routine, my life. Looking back now, I can see the signs. I just didn't want to see them then. About 6 months ago, Michael started asking about estate planning. Not directly, just casual questions. "Mom, have you thought about what happens to the house if something happens to you? You should really have your legal documents updated. At your age, it's important to have everything in order." At my age, like 74 was ancient, like I had 1 foot in the grave. Then 3 months ago, in March, he brought over paperwork, power of attorney documents. "Just in case," he said. "Standard safety planning. If you get sick or something happens, someone needs to be able to make decisions, help you out." It made sense. I'm not stupid. I know accidents happen, medical emergencies happen. Having legal documents in order seemed responsible. He was my son. I trusted him. So I signed the papers. Barely read them, if I'm being honest. He explained what they were for. I believed him, and I signed. That was my mistake. Trusting family, assuming the best, thinking that blood meant loyalty. My neighbor Margaret had been watching me closer since Robert died. She's 68, retired teacher like me, divorced 20 years ago, lives alone in the house 2 doors down. She brings me casseroles every Tuesday without fail, always something with pasta, always too much for one person. She's obsessed with her rose garden, competes in the county fair every year, watches property values in the neighborhood like a hawk. Margaret noticed Michael's visits increasing. "He's coming by a lot lately," she mentioned one afternoon while we were both working in our yards. "Everything okay?" "He's just checking on me," I said, "being a good son." She gave me a look. Margaret had raised 3 kids on her own after her divorce. She knew something about children and their motivations, but she didn't push it, just went back to her roses. I should have listened to that look. Part of me wondered, even then, if Michael had convinced himself he was doing the right thing. His divorce had wrecked him. The financial pressure was crushing. I'd watched him struggle, seen him spiral. Maybe he'd told himself that I really would be safer in assisted living, that selling the house was helping me, not stealing from me. Desperation makes people lie to themselves. I'd seen it with students' parents over the years, people reframing their bad choices as good intentions. But knowing why someone hurts you doesn't mean you let them do it. That night, after I saw the listing, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The same ceiling I'd stared at for 32 years. When Robert had his first heart attack in 2015, we'd gotten lucky, mild, treatable. When Michael called about his divorce, when Sarah's daughter got into Yale, this house had held all of it. Every joy, every crisis, every ordinary Tuesday evening. And Michael wanted to put it on Zillow, like it was just property, like it didn't matter. At 2 a.m, I got up, went to my filing cabinet in the spare bedroom, found the power of attorney documents Michael had brought in March, the ones I'd signed without reading carefully. I started reading them, really reading them this time. That's when I saw it. Paragraph 7, Section C, buried in the legal language. Attorney in fact shall have authority to make real estate decisions including but not limited to sale, lease, or transfer of principal's property. My hands started shaking again. I'd signed away my house, not on purpose, not knowingly, but I'd signed the papers that gave Michael the legal authority to sell it. And he'd been planning this for months. Wednesday morning, I called the listing agent. Bradley Morrison answered on the second ring. Professional voice. Polite. "I'm calling about the listing on Maple Street," I said. 1420 Maple. "Yes, beautiful property. Are you interested in scheduling a showing?" "I live there," I said. "That's my house." There was a pause. "I'm sorry, I don't understand." "The house you have listed. I'm the owner. I didn't authorize this listing." Another pause. Longer this time. I could hear him typing. "Ma'am, according to my records, the seller is Michael Harris. He has power of attorney for the property owner. Everything was verified through our legal department." "I'm the property owner, Linda Harris, and I never gave permission for this. I'll need to look into this." His voice had changed, cautious now. "Can I call you back?" I gave him my number, hung up, sat at the kitchen table with my hands shaking. So Michael had told them he had authority, used that power of attorney paperwork, made it all look legitimate. The listing had been up since June 1st. 9 days. 9 days my house had been advertised to strangers. How many people had seen it? How many were considering offers? I pulled up the listing on my phone again, scrolled to the bottom. There it was. Multiple offers expected, closing scheduled for July 15th. July 15th. 6 weeks away. Michael had already found buyers, was already planning to close the sale. In 6 weeks, my house would belong to someone else, unless I stopped him. I called Michael's number. This time he answered. "Hey, Mom, I was going to call you back. Did you try me last night?" "I saw the house listed on Zillow," I said, kept my voice steady. "My house, Michael. You listed my house for sale." Silence on the other end. Then, "Mom, we need to talk about this. Can I come over?" "No, we can talk now. Why is my house for sale?" He sighed. "Because it's too much for you to handle. You're 74. Living alone in a 3-bedroom house. It's not safe." "I've been living here for 5 years since your father died. I'm perfectly fine. But what if something happens? What if you fall? What if you have a medical emergency and no one's there?" "I have Margaret 2 doors down. I have Sarah 40 minutes away. I have a life alert system. I'm fine, Michael." "You're not thinking clearly about this." His voice had taken on that patient tone, like he was talking to a child. "The house is a burden. The maintenance, the property taxes, the worry. You'd be so much happier in an assisted living facility. They have activities, nurses on staff, other people your age. This is my home, and I have power of attorney. I'm making the decision that's best for you since you can't see it yourself." My hands clenched around the phone. "You don't get to make that decision. This is my house, my life." "Mom, the listing stays up. I've already accepted an offer. Closing is in 6 weeks. I'm doing this for you, whether you understand it now or not." "Michael, I have to go. I'm in a meeting. We'll talk later when you've calmed down." He hung up. I sat there staring at my phone. He'd gaslighted me, told me I wasn't thinking clearly, that he knew what was best, that I'd understand later. Like I was the problem. Like I was confused. Like my completely rational objection to him selling my house without permission was just elderly stubbornness. The phone rang. Margaret. I almost didn't answer, but she'd just keep calling. Linda, are you okay? I saw you pacing in your kitchen. I'm fine. You don't look fine. I'm coming over. Margaret, She'd already hung up. 30 seconds later, she was at my back door with 2 cups of coffee from her kitchen. Talk, she said, settling into Robert's old chair at the table. So I told her about the listing, about the power of attorney, about Michael's phone call. She listened without interrupting, her face getting tighter with each detail. That bastard, she said when I finished. Sorry, but that's what he is. You need a lawyer. I don't know if I can afford... Legal aid. Elder law attorneys. This is exactly what they handle. Financial exploitation of seniors. She pulled out her phone. I'm looking it up right now. While she searched, I went to the spare bedroom, turned on the old desktop computer Michael had helped me set up years ago. I barely used it anymore. Mostly I just used my phone or tablet. But Michael had set it up on the same cloud account he used. Said it would be easier to help me with tech problems. I opened the email app. His account was still logged in. I shouldn't have looked. It was an invasion of privacy. But my house was being sold without my permission. Privacy didn't seem like the biggest concern right now. I searched for Mom in his email. Dozens of results. I clicked on one from December, 7 months ago. Subject, Assisted Living Options Riverside Area. He'd been researching facilities since December, while he was sitting at my Thanksgiving table, carving turkey, laughing with Emma and Jake. He was already planning to sell my house. Another email, January, to Sarah. Talk to Mom about estate planning. She's receptive, but doesn't want to think about it yet. Going to push for POA docs in March. Once that's in place, we can move forward with the house sale. Should be able to close by summer. My vision blurred. I read it again. Once that's in place, we can move forward with the house sale. He'd planned this for months. The casual questions about estate planning, the concerned visits, the power of attorney paperwork in March, all of it had been calculated, premeditated. Linda? Margaret was standing in the doorway. I found 3 elder law attorneys. 2 take cases pro bono if you qualify. I'll drive you tomorrow. I nodded. Couldn't speak yet. Just pointed at the computer screen. Margaret read the email. Her face went white, then red. He planned this for 7 months while asking you for money for his divorce. Apparently, you're calling a lawyer today, not tomorrow, today. She was right. I'd trusted family. Assumed blood meant loyalty. Given my son every benefit of the doubt. He'd been lying to me for 7 months. Margaret drove me to the legal aid office Thursday morning. Attorney Rebecca Torres met us in a small conference room with walls covered in certificates and family photos. She was younger than I'd expected, early 50s maybe, with reading glasses perched on her head and a coffee-stained mug that said, "World's Okayest Lawyer." "Tell me everything," she said, pulling out a yellow legal pad. So I did. The Zillow listing, the power of attorney, Michael's phone call, the emails I'd found. She took notes, asked questions, didn't interrupt. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. "Ms. Harris, I'm going to be direct with you. What your son did is fraud. The power of attorney grants him decision-making authority, not ownership. He can't sell property he doesn't own, even with POA. But I signed the papers. You signed papers giving him authority to make real estate decisions on your behalf. That doesn't transfer ownership. It doesn't give him the right to sell without your consent." She tapped her pen on the notepad. "Do you have the original deed to the property?" "At home, in my safe." "I need to see it. Can you bring it tomorrow?" "I can get it now." Margaret drove me back home. I went straight to the bedroom closet, pulled out the fireproof safe. The combination was Robert's birthday. 4 digits I'd entered 1,000 times. Inside, the important documents, birth certificates, marriage certificate, Robert's death certificate, Social Security cards. And there, at the bottom, in a manila envelope, the deed. I pulled it out. Heavy paper, legal-sized, yellow with age. I sat down on the edge of the bed, holding it in both hands. The deed was dated July 1985, 39 years ago. I could remember the day we'd signed it. Robert and me sitting at the title company office, exhausted from moving boxes all weekend, exhilarated that we actually owned a house. Our house. I read the names. Linda Marie Harris and Robert James Harris. Joint tenancy with right of survivorship, the property description, Lot 47, Block 3, Riverside Estates Edition. The legal jargon that meant this house, this home, belonged to us. There was a second document paperclipped to it, an updated deed from 2019. After Robert died, sole ownership transferred to Linda Marie Harris. The county recorder's stamp. Official, legal, mine. I sat there holding those papers. 39 years of mortgage payments. Every repair we'd done ourselves because we couldn't afford contractors. The bathroom tile in 1990, the kitchen backsplash in 1992, the roof in 2003. Every improvement. Robert building the deck in the backyard, me refinishing the hardwood floors while pregnant with Sarah. The garden he'd planted from scratch, those tomato plants he was so proud of. This house was mine, not legally ambiguous, not up for debate. Mine. The deed said so. The county records said so. The tax bills that came every year in my name said so. And Michael knew it. He'd grown up in this house. He'd seen the deed when we'd updated our estate documents over the years. He knew I owned it outright. Free and clear since 1997. He just didn't care. I stood up, still holding the deed, looked around the bedroom, the same bedroom where Robert and I had slept for 39 years, the same dresser where we'd kept our clothes, the same window where I'd stood watching the sunrise on the morning he died, unable to believe he was gone. This house held everything, every moment of my adult life, and Michael wanted to take it away like it meant nothing. I put the deed carefully back in its envelope, went back downstairs where Margaret was waiting in the kitchen. Got it? Yes. She looked at my face, didn't say anything, just squeezed my hand. We drove back to the legal aid office. Rebecca was on the phone but waved us in, finished her call, held out her hand for the envelope. I gave it to her, watched her slide the deed out, unfold it, read it carefully. Her expression didn't change, but I saw her nod slightly. "This is perfect," she said. "Joint tenancy with right of survivorship, transferred to sole ownership after your husband's death. County recorder stamp, everything in order." She looked up at me. "Ms. Harris, this proves you are the sole owner of the property. Your son's power of attorney doesn't override this. What he did was fraudulent misrepresentation. So I can stop the sale? We can stop the sale. I'll need copies of everything, the deed, the power of attorney documents, the Zillow listing, any communications with your son. We'll file a fraud report with the police and get a restraining order preventing him from accessing or disposing of the property." She started making notes. "I'll also contact the title company and the listing agent. Once they know the actual owner is objecting, the transaction will freeze." "How long will this take?" "The restraining order? We can file today, have it approved within 48 hours. The rest depends on your son's response. If he cooperates, we could resolve this in mediation. If not," she shrugged, "it could take months." Months. My stomach turned. What if he doesn't stop? What if he tries to close the sale anyway? He can't, not once we file. The title company won't proceed without clear title. And once they know you're disputing his authority, there is no clear title. Rebecca pulled out her business card, wrote a number on the back. "This is my cell phone. Call me anytime. I'm taking your case." "I can't afford." "Pro bono through legal aid. You qualify based on income. This is what we do, Ms. Harris. Your son isn't the first person to exploit a parent's trust. He won't be the last. But we can stop him." I took the card. My hands were steadier now. "Thank you." Over the next 2 days, Rebecca worked fast. I gave her copies of everything: the power of attorney documents, screenshots of the Zillow listing, printouts of Michael's emails about assisted living facilities, the timeline of his planning. She also pulled Michael's bank records through legal discovery. When she showed them to me Friday afternoon, I understood his desperation. $85,000 in credit card debt, 6 overdrafts in 3 months, child support arrears of $8,400, his mortgage 2 months behind, a car lease payment 30 days late. "This wasn't about caring for you," Rebecca said quietly. "This was about his financial survival." I stared at the numbers. My son was drowning. And instead of asking for help, instead of being honest with me, he decided to steal my house. That afternoon, Sarah called. "Mom, Michael told me you're making a big deal out of nothing. He said the power of attorney means he can sell the house and you're just being stubborn." "Did he tell you he's been planning this since December? That he asked for your help in January and you said no?" Silence. Then, "He told me he was worried about you, that the house was too much. He never said he was actually going to list it without telling you. He listed it June 1st, accepted an offer, scheduled closing for July 15th, all without asking me." "Jesus." Sarah's voice cracked. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have told you when he first approached me. I hoped he was just talking, that he wouldn't actually do it." "I need those text messages, the ones where he asked you to go along with this." "I'll forward them right now." 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Sarah had sent screenshots, December through February, Michael laying out his plan, asking Sarah to support him. Her responses getting increasingly firm. "Michael, you can't do this. This isn't right. I won't be part of this." His final message in February, "Fine, I'll do it without you." And he had. Rebecca added the messages to our evidence file. "This shows premeditation," she said. "He planned this for months, asked his sister to participate, proceeded anyway when she refused. This strengthens your case significantly." My kitchen table disappeared under papers. The deed, the power of attorney, bank statements, screenshots, legal forms Rebecca had me sign, coffee cups accumulated. I forgot to eat lunch. Didn't notice until Margaret showed up at 5 with Italian takeout and forced me to sit down. "You need to eat," she said, putting a plate of lasagna in front of me. I picked at it. Couldn't taste anything. "Linda." Margaret's voice was gentle. "You're going to get through this. That lawyer knows what she's doing. He's my son. I know. I gave him everything, and this is what he does." Margaret didn't say anything, just sat with me while I cried. First time I'd cried since this started. She handed me tissues, took away the cold lasagna, made me tea I didn't drink. That night I couldn't sleep. Lay in bed thinking about Michael, about all the times I'd helped him, all the sacrifices Robert and I had made, college tuition, house down payment, wedding, divorce, $137,000 over 30 years, and somehow he'd decided that entitled him to more, to my house, to my home, to my life. Saturday morning, Rebecca called. "Restraining order approved. Michael Harris is legally barred from selling, leasing, or otherwise disposing of your property. I've notified the listing agent, the title company, and your son's attorney. The Zillow listing will come down by Monday." I sat down at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd seen the listing 5 days ago, 5 days that felt like 5 years. "Thank you. We're not done yet, but this is a good start. Your house is protected now, he can't touch it." I hung up, looked around my kitchen, my house, my home. Michael had tried to take it, but he'd failed. Now I just had to figure out what came next. Sunday afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in years. I walked through my house, really walked through it. Not just living in it, moving from room to room on autopilot, but actually seeing it. Every room, every corner, every memory. I started in the master bedroom, Robert's reading glasses were still in the nightstand drawer where he'd left them the morning he died. 5 years ago. I'd never moved them, couldn't bring myself to. The wedding photo on the dresser, 1972, both of us so young, Robert in his rented tuxedo, me in my mother's altered dress. 53 years ago, more than half my life spent with him. Down the hall to Michael's old room, I'd converted it to a guest room after he moved out, but his high school baseball trophies were still on the shelf. Second place, regional championships, 1995. He'd been so proud. I'd driven him to every practice, every game for 4 years. Sat in the bleachers in the rain, the heat, the cold, cheering for him. Sarah's room next door, painted lavender like she'd wanted when she was 13. We'd argued about it. I thought yellow was prettier, but she'd been so determined. Robert and I had painted it together one weekend while she was at summer camp. Surprised her when she got home. Her face when she walked in. Pure joy. The bathroom where I'd taught both kids to brush their teeth. The linen closet where I'd hidden Christmas presents for 20 years. The hallway where we'd measured their heights every birthday. Pencil marks on the door frame climbing higher year after year. Down the stairs. I'd fallen down these stairs once, pregnant with Sarah, terrified I'd hurt the baby. Robert had driven me to the hospital at midnight. Everything had been fine. She'd been fine. I'd been fine. But I'd been more careful after that. The living room, the couch, where I'd rocked both babies at 2 a.m, exhausted and grateful and overwhelmed. The carpet we'd replaced 3 times, first when the kids were toddlers and spilled everything, again when Emma and Jake were little and visiting, finally 2 years ago just because it was worn out. The fireplace where we'd hung stockings every Christmas for 40 years. The dining room, the table we'd refinished together, Robert and me, sanding and staining for weeks until it was perfect. Thanksgiving dinners for 30 years, Christmas mornings, birthday cakes, homework and art projects spread across the surface. The last Thanksgiving, Michael had been here. Just 10 months ago, November 2022, he'd carved the turkey, laughed with Emma and Jake, looked tired but happy, sat right there in Robert's old chair, and I'd thought everything was fine. I hadn't known, hadn't seen. He'd already been planning this, had already decided to take my house. The kitchen, Robert's spot at the table, empty for 5 years, but still his in my mind. The window overlooking the garden, his tomato plants overgrown but still producing. The rose bushes he'd babied for 15 years. The bird feeder hanging crooked because he'd hung it wrong and refused to fix it. "The birds don't care," he'd said. They didn't. I stood at the sink looking out at the garden, the yard where the kids had played, where Robert had taught Michael to throw a baseball, where Sarah had practiced cartwheels until she could do 10 in a row, where we'd had barbecues and birthday parties and lazy Sunday afternoons. This house wasn't just walls and rooms, it was my entire adult life, every joy, every sorrow, every ordinary Tuesday evening. 47 years of marriage, 39 years of ownership, 32 years of raising children, 5 years of widowhood. Robert and I had bought this house with a 15-year mortgage in 1985, paid it off in 12, every extra dollar, every overtime shift, every sacrifice. We'd made this house ours, free and clear, by 1997. No one could take it from us, except our son was trying to. I sat down at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd seen the Zillow listing a week ago, where I'd read Michael's emails, where I'd cried with Margaret, where Rebecca had spread out legal documents explaining my rights. I thought about Michael, about the baby I'd rocked in the living room, the little boy who'd needed me to check for monsters under his bed, the teenager I'd driven to baseball practice, the young man I'd helped through college, helped buy a house, helped through his wedding, helped through his divorce. At what point had he stopped seeing me as his mother and started seeing me as an asset to liquidate? I'd been raised to believe family was everything, that you sacrificed for your children, that blood meant loyalty. My parents had helped me. I'd helped Michael. That's what families did. But Michael hadn't asked for help. He'd taken, without permission, without my knowledge, planned it for 7 months while sitting at my table, eating my food, accepting my help with his divorce. I'd thought I was too trusting. That was my flaw. I'd signed those power of attorney papers without reading them carefully. I'd believed Michael when he said it was standard safety planning. I'd assumed the best. But maybe that wasn't weakness. Maybe that was just being a mother, believing in your child, trusting that the person you raised had the same values you tried to teach them. Michael's betrayal wasn't my fault. It was his. I stood up, walked back through the house one more time. But this time, I wasn't remembering. I was claiming. This was my home, my life, my choice to stay here or leave, not his. Michael had tried to take my independence, tried to make decisions for me like I was incompetent, like I was a child who needed managing. He was wrong. Monday morning, I called Rebecca. I want to file fraud charges. Are you sure? Once we file with the police, this becomes criminal, not just civil. Your relationship with your son is already destroyed. He destroyed it when he decided to steal my house. Silence on the other end. Then, okay, I'll draft the complaint. Can you come in this afternoon? That afternoon, I sat in Rebecca's office and signed the documents. Fraud complaint, restraining order extension, legal documents that would make this official, public, criminal. This could take months, Rebecca warned, and it will get harder before it gets better. He'll fight back. His lawyer will argue he acted in good faith, that he believed he was helping you. You need to be prepared. I'm prepared. Rebecca studied my face. You've changed. Since Thursday, something's different. I decided to stop being a victim. She smiled, small but genuine. Good, because you're not one. You're a property owner whose rights were violated, and we're going to make sure everyone knows it. Over the next week, things moved fast. Rebecca filed the fraud complaint with the police, contacted the district attorney's office, sent formal notices to the title company, the listing agent, Michael's attorney. The Zillow listing came down Tuesday morning. I checked obsessively, refreshing the page every hour until finally it was gone. Just gone, like it had never existed. Michael called that afternoon. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. Mom, you're making a huge mistake. I'm trying to help you and you're treating me like a criminal. The lawyer says you could drop this any time. Just call me. We can work this out. I deleted the voicemail, blocked his number. Wednesday, I changed the locks. Hired a locksmith, stood there watching while he installed new deadbolts on the front and back doors. Michael had a key. He'd had a key since he was 16. Not anymore. The locksmith handed me the new keys. You okay, ma'am? I'm fine, thank you. He looked like he wanted to say something. Didn't. Just packed up his tools and left. I stood in the kitchen with the new keys in my hand. My house, my locks, my choice who came inside. Thursday, Rebecca called. We have a court date. Mediation in 3 weeks, July 23rd. The mediator will try to resolve this without going to trial. What if Michael doesn't show up? He'll show up. If he doesn't, you win by default. But he'll show up. His lawyer will make sure of it. And if we can't resolve it, then we go to court. Full trial. Could take 6 months to a year. I sat down. A year. A year of fighting my own son in court. A year of this consuming my life. But honestly, Rebecca continued, I think he'll settle. He knows he's going to lose. The evidence is overwhelming. He can fight, spend money on lawyers, risk criminal prosecution, or he can accept terms in mediation and walk away. What terms? That's up to you. What do you want? I thought about it. What did I want? To punish Michael? To hurt him the way he'd hurt me? To make him pay for every lie, every betrayal, every moment I'd trusted him? No, I just wanted my house, my life, my independence. I wanted him to leave me alone. I want the listing canceled. I want him to pay my legal fees. I want him legally barred from making any decisions about my property, ever. And I want a no-contact order for at least 2 years. That's reasonable. Very reasonable, actually. Most people in your position would want more. I don't want more. I just want peace. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea. The house was quiet. No TV, no music. Just quiet. I thought about Michael, about the man he'd become, about how different he was from the boy I'd raised. Or maybe not different. Maybe I just hadn't wanted to see who he really was. Part of me still loved him. He was my son. That didn't just disappear. But love didn't mean letting him hurt me. Love didn't mean sacrificing my home, my independence, my dignity. Some people might think I was being too harsh, that family should forgive, that I should understand his desperation and help him find another way. But those people hadn't watched their house go up on Zillow without permission, hadn't heard their son gaslight them on the phone, hadn't spent a week gathering evidence of a 7-month betrayal. I'd given Michael everything. College, house, wedding, divorce, $137,000 over 30 years. But I wouldn't give him this. I wouldn't give him my home. 3 weeks until mediation. 3 weeks until I'd have to face him. 3 weeks to prepare myself for whatever came next. I wasn't scared anymore. I was angry, but it was a cold anger, controlled, focused. Michael had taught me something. He'd taught me that trust had to be earned, not assumed. That family wasn't just blood, that I had to protect myself because no one else would. He'd tried to take my house, but what he'd actually taken was my naivety, my blind trust, my willingness to believe the best about people who didn't deserve it. And in a strange way, that was almost a gift. I stood in the living room one more time before bed, the same living room where I'd raised my children, 32 years in this house, and I realized something. Michael didn't get to take this from me. He just didn't. The week before mediation, everything got harder. Sarah called Monday morning. "Mom, I need to warn you. Jennifer called me last night. She's panicking." Jennifer, Michael's ex-wife. About what? About the house. She says if Michael doesn't get money from selling it, he can't keep up with child support. She's threatening to take him back to court, increase the payments. He's already behind $8,000. I sat down at the kitchen table. "Sarah, that's not my responsibility." "I know, I told her that, but she's desperate. And she said she's going to call you." "I'm not answering." "She'll keep calling, just be prepared." Jennifer called that afternoon. I stared at her name on my phone screen, almost let it go to voicemail, but she'd just keep trying. "Linda, please, just hear me out." "I'm listening. I know what Michael did was wrong. I'm not defending that. But this isn't just about him anymore. It's about Emma and Jake. If he goes to jail for this, if he loses his job because of the criminal charges, who suffers? The kids. They need their father. Then their father should have thought about that before committing fraud. He made a mistake. Jennifer, he planned this for 7 months. That's not a mistake. That's premeditated fraud. His lawyer said you were offered a settlement. If you just drop the criminal charges, everything else stays the same. You keep the house, he stays away, but he doesn't go to jail. Please. For Emma and Jake. My hands clenched around the phone. This conversation is over. I hung up, sat there shaking. I hated this. Hated that Emma and Jake were caught in the middle. Hated that Jennifer was using them as leverage. But none of this was my fault. Michael had choices. He could have asked for help, could have been honest. Instead, he'd lied for months while eating at my table, accepting money for his divorce, planning to steal my house. His children's suffering was tragic, but I wasn't the one who'd put them in this situation. He was. That evening, my phone buzzed. Text message from Emma. "Grandma, why are you doing this to Dad? He says you're trying to put him in jail. He's just trying to help you. Please stop being mean to him." I stared at the text, read it 3 times. She didn't understand. She was 14 years old. She thought her father was the victim, that I was being cruel. I typed a response, deleted it, typed another, deleted that too. How do you explain fraud to a child who loves her father? How do you make her understand without destroying her relationship with him? Finally, I just typed, "I love you, Emma." She didn't respond. I showed Margaret the text when she stopped by later with dinner. Chicken and rice casserole, still warm from her oven. "He's using the kids against you," Margaret said, her jaw tight, "making you look like the villain. They're not weapons. They're just confused." Maybe, but the effect is the same. She poured us both coffee without asking. "How are you really doing?" "I'm tired. I just want this to be over." Margaret reached across the table, squeezed my hand. Soon, just a few more days. But Wednesday morning brought worse news. Rebecca called, her voice tense. "Michael's attorney filed an emergency motion. He's claiming you're not competent to make legal decisions. Says the fraud charges prove you're confused, so that you need a guardian to protect you from making irrational choices." My stomach dropped. What? It's a desperate move. They're trying to flip the narrative, make you look unreliable, make him look like the concerned son. But it means the judge ordered a competency evaluation. You have an appointment Friday afternoon with a court psychologist. A competency evaluation. The words felt surreal. It's nothing to worry about. You're clearly competent, but we have to go through the process. Memory tests, cognitive assessments, questions about your daily life, standard procedure. After we hung up, I sat in the kitchen staring at nothing. Michael wasn't just fighting the fraud charges. He was trying to prove I was mentally incompetent, trying to get himself appointed as my guardian. The same authority he'd already abused, only permanent this time. The irony was suffocating. The man who'd lied to me for 7 months was claiming I was the one who couldn't think clearly. I went outside to the garden. Robert's tomato plants were overgrown, heavy with fruit I'd been too distracted to harvest. I pulled weeds mechanically, hands in the dirt, the physical work grounding me. My back ached. My knees protested kneeling on the hard ground. But it helped, gave me something to focus on besides the constant anxiety. That afternoon, Margaret called. "Book club emergency meeting, my house, 6 o'clock, everyone's coming." I really don't have the energy. 6 o'clock, Linda, this isn't optional. At 6, I walked down the street to Margaret's house, found 5 women in her living room, Margaret, Beth, Diane, Carol, and Susan. Coffee and cookies on the table like this was a social call, but their faces were serious. "Intervention," Margaret announced. "We heard about the competency evaluation, and we're not letting you face this alone." Beth pulled out a folder. "I did paralegal work for 20 years. Competency evaluations are designed to be passed by anyone with basic cognitive function, but nerves can trip you up." She handed me printed pages, sample questions, memory tests, clock drawing exercises. "Practice these tonight. The psychologist will ask variations. You're sharp as ever, but being prepared helps." "We're all willing to testify at mediation," Diane added. "About your mental state. We see you every week. You're more organized than most of us." Carol nodded. "You read a book every 2 weeks and discuss plot details. You remember character names I forget 5 minutes after reading them." "You balance your own checkbook," Susan said. "Drive yourself everywhere. Volunteer at the library. Michael's claim is absurd and will say so under oath if needed." I looked around the room at these women, my book club friends. They'd organized, prepared a strategy, mobilized without me even asking. "Thank you," I said quietly. "I don't know what I did to deserve this kind of support." "You showed up every week for 5 years," Margaret said simply. "You were there when Carol's husband died, when Beth's daughter got divorced, when my sister was sick. This is what friends do." Friday afternoon, I sat in Dr. Chen's office for 2 hours. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, with kind eyes and a patient voice that never felt condescending. "What year is it?" she asked. 2024. Who's the president? I told her. Counted backward from 100 by sevens. Remembered 3 words, apple, table, penny, and repeated them back 5 minutes later. Drew a clock showing 3:30. Answered questions about my daily routine, my hobbies, my living situation. Ms. Harris, Dr. Chen said finally, I have to ask, why do you think your son filed this motion? Because he's losing. He tried to sell my house without permission, and I filed fraud charges. Now he's trying to make me look incompetent so he can claim guardianship and do whatever he wants with my property. She made notes. How do you feel about your son? I thought about it. Gave her the truth. I love him. He's my son. That doesn't just disappear. But love doesn't mean letting him hurt me. And it doesn't mean I'm confused about what happened. He committed fraud. That's a fact, not confusion. More notes. Thank you for your time, Ms. Harris. My report will go to the court within a week. Over the weekend, I waited. Practiced the evaluation questions Beth had given me, even though it was over. Couldn't help myself. Needed to feel prepared for something. Monday morning, Rebecca called. Dr. Chen's report came back. You scored within normal range on all cognitive assessments. No signs of dementia, impaired judgment, or confusion. The motion is denied. Michael's claim that you're incompetent was rejected by the court. I closed my eyes. Thank God. There's more. Michael's attorney called this morning. They want to settle. They're proposing terms. My heart started racing. What terms? They'll permanently remove the listing. Michael will pay your legal fees, $8,500. He'll sign a waiver giving up any future claims to your property or authority over your decisions, and he agrees to a 1-year no-contact order. I wanted 2 years. I can push for 2. But Linda, listen. By accepting these terms, he's essentially admitting he was wrong. He's giving up everything. Your house stays yours. He pays the costs. He agrees to stay away. This gets you what matters most. I thought about it. A year felt too short. A year and he could call again, show up at my door, try to worm his way back into my life with apologies and excuses. Push for 2 years, I said. That's non-negotiable. I'll call him back. I spent Monday afternoon in the garden again, harvesting tomatoes finally, filling a basket with ripe fruit. The plants were still producing despite my neglect, still doing what they were meant to do. Robert had planted these, tended them for 15 years before he died. I'd kept them going for 5 years after. They were part of this house, this life, this place that was mine. Tuesday morning, Sarah called. Mom, Michael called me. He says you're being unreasonable, that the settlement is fair and you should just accept it. He talked to you? He's desperate, trying to get me to convince you to back down. What did you tell him? I told him he did this to himself, that whatever you decide, I support you. Her voice softened. Mom, I'm sorry I didn't warn you when he first approached me in January. I should have told you then. You thought he was just talking. You hoped he'd drop it. I should have known better. I'm his sister. I know how he gets when he's desperate. Sarah, this isn't your fault. It's his, only his. After we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table thinking, what did I really want? Punishment, revenge, to make Michael suffer the way he'd made me suffer? No. I just wanted peace. I wanted my house protected. I wanted him to stay away long enough for me to heal. I wanted to stop thinking about this every waking moment. Tuesday night, I called Rebecca. Tell them I'll accept the settlement terms, but 2 years no contact, not 1. That's final. I'll push for it. Wednesday morning, my phone rang. Rebecca. They agreed. 2 years no contact. All other terms remain the same. Settlement is acceptable to both parties. So it's over? Almost. We still need to attend mediation Thursday morning. Even with terms agreed in principle, the mediator requires both parties present to review the agreement and sign. It's standard procedure, especially in elder financial exploitation cases. The mediator wants to verify you understand the terms and are agreeing voluntarily. My stomach sank. I have to see him? in a professional setting. Conference room, mediator present, me at your side, his attorney on his. Very controlled, very structured. You review the settlement terms, answer any questions the mediator has, both parties sign, and it's done. 2 hours maximum. Can't we just file the paperwork? Legally, we could, but the mediator insists on in-person attendance for cases involving competency challenges. They want to verify firsthand that you're competent and understand what you're signing. It's actually for your protection. I closed my eyes, took a slow breath. Okay, Linda, you'll be fine. I'll be right there the whole time. And honestly, this gives you closure. You get to look him in the eye when he signs away his rights to your house. That matters. She was right. Part of me dreaded it, but part of me needed it. Needed to see his face when he admitted defeat. Needed to watch him sign those papers. What time Thursday? 10 a.m. Bring the original deed. The mediator will want to see it, and try to get some sleep tonight. After I hung up, Margaret knocked on the back door, let herself in with the spare key I'd given her. How'd the call go? Settlements agreed, but I have to go to mediation tomorrow, face-to-face with Michael. Margaret sat down across from me. Didn't say anything for a moment, then, "You want me to come? Wait in the lobby?" "No, but thank you." "You're going to walk in there, sign your papers, and walk out with your house protected. You've already won, Linda. Tomorrow is just making it official." I hope you're right. That night, I barely slept, kept imagining tomorrow. What I'd say if Michael tried to talk to me, how I'd react seeing him across the table, whether I'd cry or yell or just sit there in dignified silence. By morning, I still didn't know. I put on my navy blue dress, the one I'd worn to Robert's funeral 5 years ago, professional, serious, armor. At 9:30, I got in my car, drove to the law office where the mediation was scheduled. My hands were steady on the wheel. I'd driven this route 100 times over the past 3 weeks. Legal aid office, attorney consultations, court appointments. This was just one more. The last one. Rebecca was waiting in the parking lot. She smiled when she saw me. "Ready?" "No, but let's do it anyway." We walked into the building together, took the elevator to the second floor. The conference room was at the end of the hall. As we approached, I could see through the glass door. Michael was already there, sitting at the table with his attorney. He looked older than I remembered, thinner, more gray in his hair, tired. He looked up. Our eyes met through the glass. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then Rebecca opened the door. "Good morning," she said. "Let's get started." We went inside. The conference room was smaller than I'd expected. Rectangular table, 8 chairs, windows overlooking the parking lot. A man in his 50s sat at the head of the table, the mediator, I assumed. Professional suit, patient expression. "Ms. Harris, I'm James Chen, the mediator assigned to your case. Please have a seat." Rebecca guided me to a chair on the left side of the table. Michael sat directly across from me, his attorney beside him. Mark Brennan, according to the nameplate. Young, maybe 35, with nervous energy. I looked at Michael, really looked at him. 3 weeks since I'd seen him in person. He'd lost weight. The lines around his eyes were deeper. He wouldn't meet my gaze, kept his eyes on the table. "Let's begin," James said. "We're here to finalize a settlement agreement in the matter of Harris versus Harris. Both parties have agreed to terms in principle. My role today is to ensure both parties understand those terms and are entering this agreement voluntarily." He looked at me. "Ms. Harris, do you have legal representation?" "Yes, Attorney Rebecca Torres." "And you understand why we're here today?" "My son attempted to sell my house without my permission using a power of attorney I'd signed. I filed fraud charges. We're here to settle those charges." James made notes. "Mr. Harris, do you have legal representation?" "Yes." Michael's voice was quiet. "Mark Brennan. And do you dispute Ms. Harris's characterization of events?" Michael glanced at his attorney. Mark nodded slightly. "No, I don't dispute it." The admission hung in the air. No excuses, no justifications, just acknowledgement. James opened a folder. Before we discuss settlement terms, I'd like to review the evidence that brought us here. Ms. Torres, you've submitted documentation. Rebecca pulled out a manila folder, spread papers across the table methodically, each document placed deliberately, creating a visual timeline. First, the original property deed. She laid it in the center of the table. Yellow paper, aged official county seal, visible. Dated July 1985, joint tenancy between Linda Marie Harris and Robert James Harris. Updated in 2019 after Mr. Robert Harris's death, transferring sole ownership to Ms. Linda Harris. I watched Michael's face. He was staring at the deed. The same deed he'd seen before. The same proof he'd ignored. Second, the power of attorney documents signed March 15, 2024. Rebecca placed them next to the deed. Paragraph 7, Section C, grants authority for real estate decisions. But as Attorney Brennan knows, authority to make decisions is not the same as ownership. Mr. Michael Harris used this authority to list his mother's property for sale without her knowledge or consent. Third, the Zillow listing documentation. Screenshots, my living room, my kitchen, $850,000, estate sale. Posted June 1st. Ms. Harris discovered it June 10th. The listing remained active for 8 days before being removed following legal intervention. Fourth, financial records. Rebecca didn't elaborate, just placed a summary sheet on the table. I could see the numbers from where I sat. Michael's credit card debt, child support arrears, the desperate situation that had motivated him. Fifth, electronic communications. She laid out printed emails, highlighted sections visible, December research, January planning, February final decision. The table was covered now, evidence mapped out like pieces of a puzzle, the full picture of betrayal, documented and undeniable. James studied the papers. Mr. Harris, do you dispute any of this evidence? No. Did you list your mother's property for sale without her explicit permission? Yes. Did you use the power of attorney authority to misrepresent yourself as having the right to sell? Michael's jaw tightened. Yes. Did you plan this action for several months prior to listing the property? Yes. Each admission felt like a small victory and a small wound. My son, confessing to fraud, in front of lawyers and a mediator, because I'd forced him here. Ms. Torres, James said, you've indicated witnesses wish to testify? 2 witnesses in person, 3 submitted written statements. Let's hear from the in-person witnesses first. Rebecca stood. I'd like to call Sarah Harris Chen. The door opened. Sarah walked in. My daughter. She looked at Michael first, her face sad, then at me. She sat in the witness chair next to James. Ms. Harris Chen, what is your relationship to the parties? Linda is my mother. Michael is my brother. And you have information relevant to this case? Sarah nodded. In January, Michael contacted me. He told me he was planning to sell Mom's house and move her to assisted living. He said he'd already researched facilities. He asked if I would support the decision, help convince Mom it was for the best. What was your response? I told him no. I told him he couldn't do that without Mom's permission, that it wasn't right. Her voice was steady, but I could hear the emotion underneath. He sent me text messages over the next month, trying to convince me. I kept refusing. Finally, in February, he stopped asking, said he'd do it without me. Did you warn your mother? Sarah's eyes met mine. No, I didn't. I hoped he was just talking, that he wouldn't actually do it. I was wrong. I should have told her. Thank you, Ms. Harris Chen. Sarah stood, walked around the table, squeezed my shoulder as she passed, then left the room. Next witness, James said, Margaret Sullivan. Margaret came in, confident, dressed in her Sunday best. She sat in the witness chair like she belonged there. Ms. Sullivan, your relationship to Ms. Harris. I'm her neighbor, have been for 15 years, since before her husband died. And you have observations relevant to this case? I noticed the Zillow listing before Linda did. I watch property values in the neighborhood. When I saw her house listed, I knew immediately something was wrong. Linda would never sell without telling me, so I checked with her, and she had no idea. That's when all this started. You've also interacted regularly with Ms. Harris during the time period in question? Every day. We garden together, have coffee, she borrows my books. She's as sharp as she was 15 years ago. More organized than I am, honestly. This claim that she needs a guardian, that she's incompetent, it's garbage. Excuse my language, but it's a lie designed to cover up what he did. She gestured at Michael without looking at him. Thank you, Miss Sullivan. Margaret left. The room felt quieter without her. James made notes. Ms. Torres, the written statements. 3 members of Ms. Harris's book club all attest to her cognitive function, organizational skills, and independent living capabilities. I can summarize or read them aloud if needed. Summaries are sufficient for the record. Rebecca gave brief descriptions. Diane, Carol, Susan, all confirming what Margaret had said, that I was competent, independent, being exploited, not protected. James turned to Michael's attorney. Mr. Brennan, do you wish to call witnesses? No. Do you wish to dispute the characterization of Mr. Harris's actions as fraudulent? Mark hesitated, looked at Michael. No, we acknowledge the actions were inappropriate. Inappropriate? The word came out before I could stop it. I looked at Michael. You call planning for 7 months to steal my house inappropriate? Michael finally looked up, met my eyes. Mom. Ms. Harris, James said gently, we'll have time for statements, for now. No. I kept my eyes on Michael. I want to understand. When did you decide I didn't matter? When did you stop seeing me as your mother and start seeing me as an asset? It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Explain it to me. Because from where I'm sitting, you lied to my face for 7 months. You sat at my table at Thanksgiving, accepted money for your divorce, asked me about estate planning like you cared, and the whole time, you were planning to take my house. Michael's hands were flat on the table. I was drowning. The divorce destroyed me financially. I couldn't keep up with child support. I couldn't pay my mortgage. I was losing everything. So you decided to take mine. I thought you'd be safer in assisted living. I convinced myself I was helping you. You didn't ask what would make me safe. You decided. You treated me like a problem to solve instead of a person with the right to choose. I know I did. His voice cracked slightly. I needed the money. I was desperate. And I told myself it was for your own good, but that was just me lying to myself so I could do what I needed to do. There it was. The truth. Stripped of justifications. He'd needed money. Everything else was rationalization. You could have asked for help, I said quietly. I've given you $137,000 over 30 years. I would have helped you again, but you didn't ask. You just took. I know. James cleared his throat. Let's discuss the settlement terms. Mr. Brennan, you've agreed to the following. Removal of the property listing. Payment of Ms. Harris's legal fees totaling $8,500. A signed waiver of any future claims to Ms. Harris's property or decision-making authority. And a 2-year no-contact order. Is that correct? Yes. Mr. Harris, do you understand these terms? Do you agree to them voluntarily? Michael nodded. Yes. Ms. Harris, do these terms satisfy your requirements? I thought about it. My house protected. Michael legally barred from trying this again. 2 years of distance. Time to heal. Time to rebuild my life without looking over my shoulder. Yes. Then let's proceed with signing. James produced documents. Settlement agreement. Multiple pages. He walked through each section. Property rights affirmed. Financial obligations specified. No contact order detailed. Michael would pay the $8,500 within 30 days. He'd sign a notarized waiver relinquishing all claims. If he violated the no contact order, I could seek legal enforcement. Rebecca reviewed the documents with me, pointed out key clauses, made sure I understood what I was signing. Then she handed me a pen. I signed my name, Linda Marie Harris. The same signature on that deed from 1985, the same signature on countless documents over 39 years. My house, my rights, my choice. Michael signed next. His hand shook slightly. I watched him write his name, watched him sign away any claim to my property, watched him agree to stay away for 2 years. When he finished, he set the pen down, looked at me one more time. "I'm sorry," he said. "I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am sorry." I didn't respond, just sat there looking at the man my son had become. Part of me wanted to forgive him, to reach across the table and tell him we'd find a way through this, that family could survive anything. But another part of me, the part that had spent 3 weeks gathering evidence, fighting charges of incompetency, facing his lies, that part knew some things couldn't be forgiven with words. Some betrayals took more than apology to heal. "The settlement is finalized," James said. "Both parties have fulfilled the mediation requirement. Ms. Harris, you're free to go." Rebecca gathered the papers. My copy of the settlement. The original deed. I'd brought it like she'd asked, and now I took it back. Mine. Always mine. I stood up. Michael stood too. We looked at each other across the table covered in evidence of his betrayal. I didn't say goodbye. Didn't say anything. Just turned and walked to the door. Rebecca followed me out. The door closed behind us. The hallway was quiet. "You okay?" she asked. I took a breath. "I don't know. Ask me later." "You did it. Your house is yours. Legally protected. He can't touch it." "I know." We walked to the elevator. I pressed the button. Waited. The deed was in my purse. The settlement agreement in Rebecca's folder. Everything documented, everything official. The elevator arrived. We stepped inside. The doors closed. And as we descended, I felt something shift. Not relief, exactly. Not happiness, just closure. The legal part was over. The fighting was done. Now I just had to figure out how to live with what remained. The legal paperwork moved faster than I'd expected. Within a week, the settlement was filed with the court. Judge Stevens signed off Thursday afternoon. Rebecca called to tell me it was official. "Title company has been notified. Your deed is clear. No liens, no claims, no ambiguity. The house is yours, legally protected from any future attempts. I've also filed a permanent notation in the county records. Anyone who pulls your deed will see that Michael Harris has no ownership interest and no authority to sell." "What about the criminal charges?" "Dropped, as agreed. The DA's office closed the case. Michael won't face prosecution, but the fraud complaint is permanently in the court record. If he ever tries something like this with anyone else, that record will show a pattern." 3 consequences from the settlement, all finalized, the house protected, the legal fees paid. I'd received a check from Michael's attorney for $8,500 the day before, and the no-contact order enforced for 2 years. If Michael called, texted, showed up at my door, I could report him immediately. The other consequences were smaller, but still real. Michael's credit was destroyed, defaulting on the earnest money deposit when the sale fell through, plus the legal fees, had pushed him into debt consolidation. Emma and Jake were living primarily with Jennifer now. Michael had moved to a studio apartment 40 minutes away to cut costs. I'd heard this through Sarah, not through any contact with Michael. That door was closed. Saturday morning, Margaret came by with coffee and scones from the bakery. We sat at my kitchen table like we had dozens of times over the past month, but the atmosphere was different now, lighter. "How does it feel?" she asked. "Really? Strange. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Michael to call or show up or find some other way around the no-contact order. He won't. He signed legal papers. His lawyer made sure he understands what happens if he violates them." "I know." I sipped my coffee. "Margaret, I never thanked you properly. For everything. The casseroles, the coffee, the book club intervention, you didn't have to do any of that. She waved a hand. We're neighbors, friends. That's what we do. It was more than that. You saw something wrong and you acted. A lot of people would have minded their own business. Margaret was quiet for a moment. After my divorce, I was alone for the first time in 25 years. Thought I'd be fine. I'm independent, always have been, but it was harder than I expected. Your husband, Robert, he checked on me every week for 2 years, brought me firewood in winter, fixed my fence, never made a big deal about it, just showed up. She looked at me. I'm just returning the favor. 15 years late, but still. I reached across the table, squeezed her hand. Well, thank you. For all of it. After Margaret left, I called Rebecca's cell phone. She answered on the 3rd ring, sounding harried. Linda, hi. Everything okay? Everything's fine. I just wanted to thank you for taking my case, for fighting for me. That's my job. It was more than a job. You took this pro bono, worked evenings and weekends, called me at night when I was panicking. You didn't have to do any of that. Rebecca was quiet for a moment. I could hear traffic in the background. She was driving somewhere. My grandmother lost her house to a similar scam 15 years ago. My aunt, her daughter, had convinced her to sign a quitclaim deed, told her it was just updating paperwork. 6 months later, my grandmother was being evicted from the home she'd lived in for 40 years. By the time we figured out what happened, it was too late. We couldn't prove fraud. She died in a nursing home 2 years later, still angry about what had been taken from her. I'm sorry. Me too. But you fought back. You got your house, your independence, your life. That matters. And maybe next time I see a case like yours, I'll remember you and keep fighting. She paused. You spoke at that legal aid workshop last month. Did I tell you? 3 people came forward after your talk, all facing similar situations. We took 2 of those cases. I'm glad. Keep being brave, Linda. You're making a difference. After we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table thinking about Rebecca's grandmother, about all the people who'd lost their homes to children or relatives or scammers, about the ones who'd fought back and the ones who hadn't. I'd been lucky. I'd had evidence. I'd had a good lawyer. I'd had support. Not everyone did. That afternoon, Sarah stopped by. She'd called ahead. We'd been talking regularly since the mediation, but this was her first visit to the house since everything happened. How are you? She asked, settling into the chair across from me. Better. Tired, still processing, I think. Emma asked about you yesterday. My heart clenched. What did you tell her? That you love her. That adult problems are complicated. That she'll understand more when she's older. Sarah looked down at her hands. She misses you. So does Jake. I miss them too. Michael's letter explained some of it. He told them he made a big mistake, that he hurt you, that you needed space. I don't think they fully understand, but they're starting to. What about you? I asked. How are you doing with all this? Sarah took a breath. Angry at Michael. Relieved for you. Guilty I didn't warn you in January. It's complicated. You're not responsible for what he did. I know, but I knew something was wrong. I should have trusted that instinct. She looked up at me. Mom, I need you to know, if you ever need anything, I'm here. Documents signed, estate planning, medical decisions, whatever. I won't abuse that trust. I promise. I know you won't. She pulled out an envelope. I brought something. It's from Michael. He asked me to give it to you. I told him about the no contact order. This doesn't violate it, technically, since it's going through me. But you don't have to read it. I can throw it away right now if you want. I looked at the envelope, my name written in Michael's handwriting. Part of me wanted to tell Sarah to burn it. Part of me needed to know what he'd say. I'll read it later. Sarah left the envelope on the table. We talked for another hour about other things, her kids, her work, normal life continuing despite everything. When she left, she hugged me tight. I love you, Mom. I love you too. After Sarah left, I stared at the envelope for a long time. Finally, I opened it. The letter was handwritten. 2 pages. Michael's handwriting, neater than usual, like he'd taken time with it. "Mom, I know I don't have the right to write to you. I know you probably don't want to hear from me. But I need to say things I didn't say at mediation, and this might be my only chance. I'm not going to make excuses. What I did was wrong. Worse than wrong, it was a betrayal of everything you taught me about trust and family. I planned it for months. I lied to your face. I tried to take your home, and when you caught me, I tried to make you look incompetent to cover my own crimes. There's no defense for any of that. I told myself I was helping you, that you'd be safer in assisted living, that you were getting older and needed protection. But that was just me rationalizing what I wanted to do anyway. The truth is, I was desperate and selfish, and I convinced myself your house was the solution to my problems. I've spent the last month in therapy, court-mandated actually, part of the settlement. My therapist asked me when I stopped seeing you as my mother and started seeing you as a resource. I didn't have an answer, but I think it was gradual. Every time you helped me, college, the house, the wedding, the divorce, I felt grateful at first. But then I started to feel entitled, like you owed me more, like your role was to fix my problems. I forgot you had your own life, your own needs, your own right to make decisions about your property and your future. I treated you like someone who existed to serve me, and I'm ashamed of that. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect we'll ever have the relationship we had before. But I want you to know I see what I did. I understand the harm, and I'm trying to be better. For Emma and Jake, if nothing else. They deserve a father who doesn't steal from his mother. I'm sorry, those words aren't enough, but they're all I have. Michael. I read the letter twice, set it down, stared at the kitchen wall. Part of me wanted to believe him, wanted to think therapy would change him, that he really understood, that someday we could rebuild something. But another part of me, the part that had read his emails about assisted living research, that had heard him gaslight me on the phone, that had watched him try to claim I was incompetent, that part knew words were easy. Actions were what mattered. Michael was sorry. I believed that, but sorry didn't undo the betrayal. Sorry didn't give back the 3 weeks I'd spent gathering evidence and fighting fraud charges. Sorry didn't erase the moment I'd seen my house on Zillow, my life up for sale without my permission. I folded the letter, put it back in the envelope, opened the drawer where I kept important papers, filed it away. Maybe someday I'd want to read it again. Maybe someday I'd be ready to respond. But not today. Today, I just wanted peace. I went outside to the garden. Robert's tomato plants were still producing, heavy with late summer fruit. I started harvesting, filling a basket with ripe tomatoes. The physical work felt good, grounding. When the basket was full, I sat on the back porch steps, looked at the house, my house, the home I'd lived in for 32 years, the place where I'd raised my children, buried my husband, built my life. It was still mine, legally, permanently protected. Michael had tried to take it, but I'd fought back, and I'd won. That had to count for something. Inside, I put the tomatoes on the kitchen counter, made myself dinner, scrambled eggs, toast, tea. Simple, quiet mine. After dinner, I sat at the table with my estate documents. The updated versions Rebecca had helped me prepare. Everything organized, clear, protected. The house would go to Emma and Jake when I died. A trust, managed by Sarah as executor. Michael's name was nowhere in the documents. He'd signed away his rights, made his choice. Maybe someday that would change. Maybe when the kids were grown. Maybe when he'd proven over years, not months, that he'd changed. Maybe. But for now, this was how it had to be. Protection wasn't punishment. It was just reality. I put the documents back in the safe, locked it. Combination was Robert's birthday. I hadn't changed it, wouldn't change it. Some things stayed the same. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. No nightmares about eviction, no waking up at 3 a.m. worrying about legal deadlines. Just sleep. Deep, restful, peaceful sleep. In the morning, I'd start thinking about what came next. But for tonight, this was enough. 6 months later, I'm still here. Same house, same kitchen table, same chipped mug I've used for 20 years. The morning coffee ritual Robert and I shared for 40 years continued alone for the past 5.5. But something's different. Not the house. That's exactly as it was. Me. I'm different. I look around the kitchen. The window over the sink overlooks the garden. Robert's tomato plants are dormant now, winter coming on, but they'll be back in spring. The table where I've had coffee every morning for 32 years. The cabinets we installed ourselves in 1990. Every corner holds a memory. Every room tells a story. This house isn't just property valued at $850,000. It's my life. 32 years of choices, large and small, and it's still mine, on my terms. Margaret still brings casseroles on Tuesdays. We've turned it into standing dinner plans now. Sarah calls every Sunday morning at 9 a.m., like clockwork. We talk about her work, her kids, the weather. We don't talk about Michael much. That wound is still healing. The book club meets every other Wednesday. We just finished a novel about family betrayal. The irony wasn't lost on anyone, and Beth made a comment about art imitating life that made everyone uncomfortable for about 30 seconds before we moved on. That's friendship, knowing when to acknowledge something and when to just keep reading. Living alone at 74 isn't what Michael claimed it was. It's not a burden I can't handle. It's not a crisis requiring intervention. It's a choice. My choice. I wake up when I want. I have coffee where I want. I decide what happens in my home. These aren't tasks that need managing. They're freedoms worth protecting. The estate documents sit in the safe next to the original deed. Everything protected. Sarah's named executor. The house goes to Emma and Jake through a trust. Michael's excluded. Those decisions are permanent. Maybe someday that will change, but I'm not holding my breath. Last month, I spoke at another legal aid workshop, told my story to a room of seniors facing similar situations, kept it simple. My son tried to take my house using paperwork I'd signed. I fought back with evidence and a good lawyer. You can too. Your home is yours. Your choices are yours. 3 people came up afterward, quietly asking for help. I gave them Rebecca's card. Maybe I can't save everyone, but I can pay forward the help I received. Here's what I've learned. Blood doesn't guarantee loyalty. Family isn't just biology. It's earned through actions, not claimed through DNA. Trust isn't weakness, but trusting again after betrayal requires proof, not promises. And standing up for yourself, even when it costs you relationships, even when it hurts, that's not selfish. That's necessary. I'm 74. I live alone. And I'm exactly where I want to be, in my home, on my terms. Some days I still think about Michael. Wonder if he's doing better, if therapy helped, if he really understands what he did. Other days I don't think about him at all. Both are okay. Emma and Jake's birthday cards are on the refrigerator. They write to me now, send school pictures, tell me about their lives. Through Sarah. Always through Sarah, respecting the boundaries. Maybe when they're adults, when enough time has passed, we'll rebuild something. Maybe. For now, I have this house, this life, these choices. I have Margaret's friendship and Sarah's loyalty and a community that showed up when I needed them. I have independence protected by legal documents and a story that might help others facing the same fight. This isn't a fairy tale ending. Michael didn't transform into the son I raised. My family wasn't magically healed, but I protected what mattered most. I fought when fighting was necessary. I set boundaries when boundaries were required, and I'm still standing in my kitchen, in my house, on my land. That's not just survival, that's freedom.